get into it, just a little bit of housekeeping once again. If you want to ask questions of our guests, please do so using the live discussion functionality on the app via the question segment, and also there'll be polls there for you to get involved with as well if you want to cast your vote. So please do get involved. We want this to be a truly interactive session. March was when obviously lockdown was fully implemented. It's normally a busy time for clubs in European football. It's when the season really starts to bite. Squads are stretched, injuries start to build, as do suspensions, and the pressure to achieve builds as well. And for Major League Soccer, of course, it's the start of their campaign. It's when you finally get to press go and you see what your new signings can do and find out just how successful your preseason preparations have been. Or at least that's how it should have been. Instead, everything stopped. Football was practically brought to its knees by this coronavirus pandemic and thrust into a place that it neither recognised nor was prepared for. So many questions to do with safeguarding health, furloughing employees, restarting seasons, recompensing fans, a complicated, delicate, and yes, we've heard the word several times, unprecedented situation. But football had to respond, and respond it has. We're going to be getting a first-hand accounts of how things have gone over the last 6 months or so from representatives at the top of clubs, both in Europe and stateside, and you can see them here. This will be a fascinating session in the company of a CEO of Brighton and Hove Albion, Paul Barber, a CEO at Orlando City Soccer, Alex Leitão, the president at SSC Bari, Luigi de Laurentiis, and a global ambassador at Real Madrid, a former player, of course, Emilio Butragueño, and your moderator, president at Nolan Partners, Chad Biagini. Chad, what a cast list. This is going to be some session. Over to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Everyone, thanks for joining. So this current pandemic is unlike anything we've ever experienced before. But before we get to the pandemic, I do want to start broader. All of our organizations have faced other challenges and crises that we've gotten through. We've prevailed before. And so I think that would be a good place to start before we jump in. Can any of you share any specific challenge that your organization got through where at the time seemed considerable, perhaps even insurmountable, and how you navigated through that challenge?
Sure, I can start.
Yes, Chad, and maybe. Okay.
Paul, why don't you go first, then Alex? Thank you.
Okay. Well, less than 25 years ago, this football club was close to going out of business. We were at the bottom of the English professional football pyramid. We'd lost our stadium, we were deep in debt, and we were very, very short while from literally going out of existence. So to be back from that, to be playing in the Premier League for the third season in succession this year, and hopefully if we can survive the next 5 matches, play in the Premier League next year, has been a remarkable transformation. So hopefully, whilst this pandemic has been terrible, and it's been a very, very difficult period for everyone to get through, we should hopefully come out of it in better shape than we were in back 23 years ago when the club almost went out of extinction.
Thank you, Paul. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, we are part of a very young league. We are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And the club, we are going to our 6th season. So I think the most challenge at this point, it was really start a club from scratch, from zero, and then and do everything that you have to do in order to put a ambitious plan like that in place. You have to build a stadium, you have to build the training ground, and then you have to have the players and making this count, and then put together a front office and hiring the right people. So that was until now the challenge, and convince the league to accept us into there. So that was the big challenge at this point. But nothing, in my opinion, compares with what we are facing right now, the uncertainty of those times, and have to really fight the virus and see how can we continue to play the beautiful game and continue the business.
Luigi? Yes. Well, basically, yeah, it's very different from what we just went through. But 2 years ago, we acquired the club from bankruptcy, and that was in August, and we were supposed to start playing in mid-September. So basically, in 40 days, we had to get a whole new team, actually launched the new brand of the team, because the bankruptcy took also the logo, the actual logo of the team. So we relaunched the whole brand in 40 days, and including, running the stadium, launching the stadium, launching the tickets and everything. So in 40 days, we basically didn't live, we worked 15-hour days, and it was pretty crazy times, and hiring new people and trying to make it work. And now 2 years later, we're off to a good start. So that was pretty hectic, but very far from what we just went through.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I'm delighted to take part in this roundtable. I'm very pleased to be with you, Luigi, Alex, Barber, and Chad. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting session. Regarding Real Madrid, we are 118 years old. So throughout this time, we've been so lucky as to have very successful periods, but at the same time, we have to go through difficult times. We suffered a civil war here in Spain. The post-war period as well was very difficult, and some economic crisis. I mean, to give you a recent example, in 2000, when our current president took over, won his first presidential election, the club was facing a difficult situation, and our president, as you may know, he's a very prestigious and successful businessman, and he instilled all his experience and knowledge within the club, and he was able to transform the club into a very successful and modern organization to become a solid club. And he put in place a very unique, let's say, sporting and economic strategy, and that strategy has let us succeed both at the sporting and economic level for the last 20 years. So that was a really very difficult period, and thanks to the leadership of our current president, we were able to get through.
Thank you, everyone. I wanted to start there because most organizations, most people will have stories of overcoming and triumph in order to get where they are, right? You take jewels and you put them under immense pressure to come out beautiful on the other side of it. And we will all get through coronavirus, as challenging as it is today. Let's take a moment to go back to early March. When did you start to realize coronavirus was going to have a significant impact on the world as we know it, and specifically your world, the world of football? And how did you navigate through the first couple of weeks of that challenge?
I can start.
If you want to start. I mean, well, here in Spain, it was simple. We realized when the Spanish government decided to declare a state of alarm, and everybody had to confine and stay at home. All of a sudden, life in Spain was paralyzed, and the economic activity as well. Everything, airports, hotels, bars, restaurants, shops, factories, tourism, everything stopped. And well, football is part of our society, and football stopped as well. And all of a sudden, our revenue plummeted. No football, no stadium activity, no commercial activity, nothing. And then is when we realized the tremendous impact, the magnitude of the impact on our club. And then, well, all of a sudden, what we have to do is to adapt to the situation, adapt ourselves to the situation, and try to cut expenses. I mean, there were some expenses scheduled for the rest both of the season and the year, and then what we tried to do was to reduce them and avoid them if possible. So it was tough, really, but we were able to do it.
Thanks, Emilio. Luigi, you started to answer as well.
Yes. So I think Italy-wise, by the end of February, we started realizing that our championship was going to stop and Italy was going to go into lockdown. We didn't know yet when. And in fact, we ended up playing even on March 9th, which was the night before the whole country went into lockdown. And it was pretty crazy times. And it took that first week to really realize what was going on. But the first operation was to make sure that everybody was going to be safe and locked in their homes. Our players, our staff. It was very important that everybody respected the lockdown and everybody was just locked. And then the second step was to make sure that everybody, because we also have a lot of young players staying maybe in hotel structures and not actually in a home, that they were receiving the right assistance. They could be helped, and we could service them anything that they needed. I think the first rule was to really make sure that nobody was going back home because of the problems, or because of the pandemic that was going everywhere. And thankfully, the Puglia region was not a region that was so affected throughout the virus. And so it was very important for us. And we had situations where people, were away from their wives, from their kids. And I must say that everybody was very, very respectable in behaving properly. So for us, it was important. We spoke to everybody on a daily basis to keep everybody, there were some depressions to deal with. There were a lot of problems that we had to deal with. And by being close to everybody, I think that was achieved, and that was important. In terms of economics as well, like Emilio was saying, we also addressed all the economics right away, and we tried to stop all the economical expenses as much as we could, because we didn't know what we were facing and how long we were going to face them for.
What have been your greatest learnings as club leaders over the course of these recent events?
Well, I think for us, we were the Premier League game that was postponed, that led to the whole suspension of the league. So we were due to play Arsenal on the 14th of March, and at about 10 o'clock on the 12th of March, on the Thursday, I got a call from the CEO of Arsenal to say that Mikel Arteta had tested positive for the virus and that Arsenal would be unable to play us on that Saturday. And what then followed was the suspension of the league, and we only started playing again on the 17th of June. So a bit like Emilio and Luigi, we went through a period of, I think, having to very quickly adjust and adapt, reduce our expenditure, protect our income, most importantly, protect our staff from a health point of view. But I think the thing that we learned very quickly was not to take anything for granted anymore. Everything that we got used to, playing football week after week, training day after day, having income coming into the club, and all of the things that we had just simply become used to in 119 years of our history, suddenly stopped overnight. And the shock of that, I think, took a while for us to adjust to. The lockdown in the UK didn't happen for another 11 days after that call that I took from Arsenal. So it was still a very strange period in between the games being postponed and lockdown starting. But I think over the 3 months we've learned a lot. I think most importantly, we've kept our people safe as we possibly could. We're grateful that we're now beginning to play again, even though we haven't got fans in this stadium. It's great to be playing football again. And I hope that very soon we'll be able to bring fans back into the stadium when it's safe, and that we can all come through this crisis as a football family wiser than when we went into it.
And here in the United States, the league was suspended on the March 12th. That's when everything started for us. Very tough times. And at that moment, we decided to shut down the office, send everybody home, because we know that it will come as exactly what happened. in our state. We had the order to stay at home. And then after that, we have just three things in mind. One is to keep engaging with fans. And we did it through a lot of things and through our content team that did a great job with the city classics and other initiatives that we put in place. The second thing that was very important for us is to be with the community. So we are a club of the community. We want to be with them. We want to help the ones that needed more at that point, considering all the financial impact of a crisis like that. And the third point is save jobs. And keep our players and staff as safe as possible. So those were the three things that we put as an objective when the whole thing started. And then we start to put plans in places, like as I mentioned with the content, in terms of financial sitting on the cash. I think everybody did that in every industry. When the crisis just came in, and start negotiation and conversations with the league and how the future is going to look like for us as clubs, and then start step by step, and this is something interesting that Paul just said, and I can see that how incredible it is, and from both players' perspective and coaches and ourselves, the staff, when we start to training as we did on May 5th. And individualized training, and after as a small group training and the full team training, when we have everybody back to the office on May 13th, even with shifts, even with masks, even with a lot of protocols, it's really the possibility to work and to really to be blessed that we have a business, we have a work, we have a job, and we can do our job. And we are more than happy now to say that we as a league decided to, before we start the league itself, we were going to do a tournament. That means a lot, because it means a spot in the CONCACAF Champions League, which is our kind of a Champions League. That we have a money prize. The games will count in terms of points for the league championship. So we're doing this tournament. It's kind of a World Cup style, when we have all the 26 teams, by coincidence all of them here in Orlando at Disney World, and we have everybody in the same hotel and everybody being tested every other day. So every 48 hours, all the players, coaches, and staff that are involved in that tournament have been tested. And we are checking that, and we are glad that we are back, and our fans are gonna see some football from TV, but they're gonna see some football and starting day after tomorrow. So we are happy with that. We have plans to have our league back and have the games different than my colleagues here in this table. We had just 2 games in our belts when we had to shut down completely the league. So hopefully the things will start to come back, and we have to learn with the process. I mean, the way we're going to broadcast is going to be different. We're going to learn a lot of things different that we'll have to do differently. That some things are going to be good that we can replicate and doing on our back to normal. And some other things is just it's not going to work. But I think it'll be a great opportunity for all the clubs, and we are seeing this as an opportunity here in MLS to learn and test and doing things differently.
You all brought up interesting points about protecting revenue, or Alex. Tess, go ahead.
Chad, do you allow me to say something regarding the lessons of this pandemic? Just very quick. The first one is that what seems impossible is possible. Everything can change overnight. I think that is the first lesson. The second is our ability to overcome difficulties. We've been able to come back, and I think we should be very proud about that. And the third one is that we have to be united. When we are united, we'll win. I think these are the 3 lessons, in my view, of this terrible period.
Oh, that's great, Emilio. Thank you. And on that note of anything's possible and how we'll come back and overcome, what's this balance of running a club right now and protecting what you have in terms of fortifying the balance sheet and keeping the resources versus investing into the future of football and new expectations consumers might have? And how do you balance today versus tomorrow? What does that look like within your organizations?
I can start answer that. I mean, it's a learning process, honestly. What you have to do in the first place to protect the cash and to fulfill the commitments that we have with our sponsors. And here in MLS, the club sponsors, ticketing, the TV rights. Those are the three big components of a budget of a club. And then doing a tournament like that, we can actually is one of the reasons we're doing a tournament like that as well, not only to give back football to our fans, but as well to fulfill commitments with the sponsors and the TVs. And hopefully, after the tournament, we will be able to bring back football to our stadium, even if with the limited capacity. But we can at least to give our season ticket holders the possibility to come back to the stadium and make the all that process going again. I mean, it's 2020. It's going to be tough for every single club in the world. At the same time, I think the market it's going to adjust. I can say that some players that we were discussing before the pandemic, clubs are coming back to us with different numbers. I do believe that again, in terms from a club perspective, it's interesting to see how those numbers gonna be. In my opinion, the numbers were very, very, high, and when the moment that from the and this is like a domino effect, right? From top to bottom, when the things going down in all types of levels. I mean, for a club like us, like Orlando City in MLS, in the league that have their size in terms of investment, but as well for a club like Real Madrid that sky is limited, they have more resources. But I feel like the entire business is going to a moment or a process to be adjusted after the pandemic, because it's going to need time for all of us to be back and where we were before this pandemic started. The good news is what I've learned from this whole process, that this is not a financial crisis that came from a fundamental, economic fundamental. That was like a big storm or something that comes that we know that we went, and that we will be able to rebuild after that in a way that's not really affected the fundamentals of economics, and especially here in the United States, we felt like this.
Yeah, hi Chad. I think it's an everyday lesson for reshaping everything that everything you have into something new. You have to be very creative at these times. I think from a sponsor's point of view, for example, we've been speaking, in first person and doing all these meetings to understand where they want to go, how they can move forward, if what are their resources, because a lot of sponsors are able to follow you or be with you if next year you're offering them something different, something that can be maybe more digital, something that are new propositions from a business point of view, so from visibility point of view. So sponsors wise, it's been very delicate into dealing with them. I think as much as working actually with the government, which I've been doing very closely in the last couple of weeks. We, with 3 scientists, worked on a protocol so that we could give it to our governor of our region, and so that we could go to the government and try to join forces with other teams of the south of Italy, so that we could, work on that, especially now that the federation is trying to push forward into the reopening of maybe the 25% of our stadiums, which could also, start helping everybody on the revenue system and on the credibility of the sport, and on relaunching the sport of soccer. I think as much as also we wanted to work with our soccer players and their salaries, and soccer players have actually been very cooperative. So with our team, we've been able to cancel 2 months of salaries, and this has been something pretty great from their part, because they believe in the project, and we were able to find a deal with them to secure also the team, who just started 2 years ago and who needs cash flow in order to invest in the next championship. So I think from every aspect, it's a learning curve, especially also working with fans throughout the year, because they cancel the championship. They have no more seasonal pass. So, we can give them some vouchers, but at the same time, with the credibility we've been able to build with them, and also through the pandemic with the communication we've built through our digital platforms, a lot of fans have actually come back to us into not wanting their vouchers for next season. So as another generosity factor. So it's something that really gives us a lot of energy into trying to reshape our whole club into the future. And I think the future must be very creative and attentive every day on, especially on behavioral economics. I think you and I, Chad, spoke about it last time on the phone, because behavioral economics right now is something that we need to study every day. We need to understand how the masses are moving, how they're consuming, how they're going back to feeling secure, into going back into open spaces, into public spaces, into arenas, into entertainment. So it's a very long process that will require a lot of time.
I think over here, Chad, we've been through a number of different stages. That first stage was survival. What is this? How long is it going to last? How can we keep our business and the jobs of our people intact? We then went through a small period of stabilizing, just as we worked through the protocols to bring the business back, bring the players back to training and get to back playing. And we then had to reevaluate. We then had to look at our business again and be creative, be flexible, be adaptable to what we were then faced with. And now I think, as we come through and get to the end of this season, and we've got 5 more matches to play, then I think we need to be a little bit more ambitious about how we look to the future, how we adapt some of the things that we've done during this period, and carry on with them. There's been some positive things, the way we've communicated with our fans, the way we've helped our community, the way we've engaged with our sponsors. We've actually had to do this in a different and perhaps better way than we have in the past. And likewise with our broadcast partners, we've had to be much more creative with them. We've had to help them. We've got empty stadiums, and we've had to try and help them make the product for TV as good as it can be. The product of football is great, but without the fans, without the atmosphere, we know that the TV product is a lot different. So we've had to help them with that. And then hopefully if we can combine all of the learning and all of the things that we've been through, then maybe we can prosper again in the future. And that's something I think we have to be positive about, and we have to work together as a football community to learn from each other.
Well, I agree with all of you. I don't want to be repetitive, but there has been something I would like to highlight. This pandemic has accelerated some process in our society, and probably is going to accelerate the digital process in our society as well. And as football is part of the society, football will experience that, and that will let us reach our fans directly and put in place a very special relationship through different platforms. And that platform and that relationship is going to help us to strengthen the emotional part of our relationship, and at the same time to expand the commercial scenario globally. And something that we have to bear in mind, our fans are very loyal. They are going to be with us forever. That is really very important. And like other sectors of the economy, the loyalty of our fans is probably one of our main assets to build the future.
That's great. On that note, we have live polls that are taking place right now with all the viewers, and one of the polls is, where are sports clubs most likely to find new revenue streams post-COVID? And the options were esports, media rights, digital, sponsorship, or expanding into new markets. And overwhelmingly, digital and esports, more than 60% were those two combined. So it just shows what you're saying, Emilio, such an opportunity for our organizations to be more digital, more connected around the world through what this is offering us. I've got a couple of questions that are coming in live, and I'm trying to be digitally ambidextrous right now on two different screens. Jackie Wilcox asked, as you focus on financials for next season, something might have to be deprioritized since we are looking at probably lower revenue numbers. What is that? Is that new signings? Is that new markets? Is that new verticals? Where do your organizations look to potentially deprioritize some of the areas that were focuses before?
Well, I think for us, Chad, we were planning to do some more works on our stadium, which we are going to delay, so that we don't actually take away from the team's performance. These are things that were nice to do. They weren't things that were must do. We're going to carry on with some works at our training ground because, again, focusing on team performance, I think is more important. And I think in the transfer market, we are going to see probably a short-term blip. Whether that's medium or longer term, I think remains to be seen. But we're very glad that we've invested in our academy over the last 10 years because it gives us an opportunity to bring through more younger players faster. And a bit like Emilio said, I think some of the positives of this terrible period we've all been through is that it's forced some changes upon us faster maybe than we might have otherwise expected to see. And in all areas, that can be a good thing as well as a challenging thing. So for us, we'll suspend the works we don't need to do. We'll carry on with the works that are important, and we'll make even better use of our academy and give young players a chance to come and play in the Premier League.
Chad, in our case here in Orlando, what we need to do first is we need time to understand the damage, and after that, I believe that the big plan is not going to change. I mean, as I mentioned, I mean, we are a very, very young club. The last 5 years, we've been planning and investing and putting a structure together. So we built a stadium, 25,500 seat stadium that we are very, very proud of in downtown Orlando. We just opened our training ground this year with a mini stadium for 5,000 seats for B team to play. I mean, we've been investing in infrastructure, and we were prepared for this year to start investing on football itself. And this is I believe that is not going to change. I mean, we will continue so we will see the damage. We already understand our strategy, our infrastructure is in place, and we want to see to the team and make the right investments and players for the future and the next couple of seasons.
On our side, I was thinking of structuring the team with more resources. So I think we're going to wait on hiring more human resources for the team. We'll keep the same structure. At the same time, though, we decided to move forward on everything we're doing. So more academies. So for our academy program, and we'll be investing on players, and we'll be investing on the stadium. I think what we'll be cutting from is anything that's unnecessary. And we'll just try to cut as much as we can. We'll just try to economize as much as we can from travels to any kind of expense. And yeah, so I won't be hiring more people to the program for now for this year, just to begin with, and then we'll see how it goes.
Well, I would like to talk in general. I mean, I think the industry of football has to accommodate to the new situation until, well, we don't know when. Probably when vaccine or medicament is medication is discovered. In the meantime, I think there is a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what is going to happen. We don't know how the pandemic is going to evolve in the next 2 months. So, in that sense, what we have to do is to be very creative, to be flexible enough to adapt ourselves to, well, the new situations, because we don't know what is going to happen in the following months.
We'll go to a second poll because I think it's relevant with what we're all talking about now. Will COVID-19 affect the transfer market and player salaries? I won't tell you what everyone said yes. I'll hear your responses first. But on that note, will we still continue seeing these massive transfer fees we've seen over the course of the last several years? I think of the Coutinhos, the Griezmann, Belés. Will we still see $100+ million transfers, or do you think this will be affected from the loss of revenues happening across the industry?
We don't make £100 million transfer, so I'll let Emilio talk about that one.
And Emilio, no pressure to answer on behalf of Real Madrid, just broader. Do you think the industry is affected broadly?
I think something which is really very important to understand, this is not a football crisis. This is a world crisis. And football is part of the world, it's part of the society. The world economy is struggling. I mean, have received a tremendous impact. And then, of course, football is affected for that. And this, global situation, of course, is going to condition football and what is going to happen in the following months. There is no doubt about it. Having said that, we don't know yet exactly what is going to happen, but we can foresee that the situation is going to be different, of course, in comparison with other summers.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think what we're seeing. I mean, it's probably salaries, going down, which is something that we're already experiencing. So probably some 20, 24, 25% in salaries, which could help. I mean, I think in the overall, if we're talking about big players, I think they will keep their value, but definitely in this shorter period of times, they will go down, and we're actually going to see some minor numbers in that department. So I think it will be affected for now.
One of the other popular questions that's coming through right now is referring to some of the administrations that we're seeing across the industry. Specifically, Wigan has just declared administration. Do you see this being an inevitable effect of COVID-19? And if so, what are possible scenarios clubs could do to avoid entering administration and insolvency?
Well, I think, speaking from an English football point of view, I think one of the problems, Chad, for some years now is that clubs have been living beyond their means. They've been spending more money than they've been bringing in, and relying on either player sales to get out of trouble at the end of each season, or an uplift in TV or sponsorship income to help that situation. And again, as I said right at the start, I think this perhaps is a wake-up call for all of us to manage our businesses as prudently or more prudently than we have in the past. And we're all guilty at some point of just stretching that little bit too far for the next level that we want to try and get to. And sometimes we do that too quickly without the security of the income behind it. And sadly, what's happening in England is that the sudden loss of income has highlighted a number of flaws in our business models, which are now unfortunately leading to some clubs going into administration. And that's really sad, because these clubs are at the heart of their communities. They do great work in the community. They sustain a lot of jobs. And unfortunately now we're beginning to see the effects of this crisis from a financial point of view. As Emilio said earlier, this isn't just a football problem. This is a problem for the whole world and for each country and their own economies. And unfortunately, football is a part of that. And as other businesses and other industries are failing, we're going to see some football industry businesses failing as well. And unfortunately, that does have a material effect, as I say, on communities. So, I hope that we won't see too many, but unfortunately, I think it's inevitable that we will see some.
It's a really good point, Paul. You look at other industries and many businesses will have 6, 9, 12 months of cash on hand in case of crises. Football hasn't operated that way in many markets, right? We're constantly spending to our last dollar. You brought up community. So in a crisis, supporters want to see a response from their sports properties. And I know all of your clubs have done a great job on this. So tell a little bit of that story. How have your clubs engaged and embraced the community during this season of life?
Well, for us, we from the beginning, I spoke to our digital team because I've always been passionate about the digital platforms of our team and communicating with them, especially because you can speak directly to all our fans. So for me, it was important to create a storytelling. So in order to give presence to the fans that were locked in their homes, and we wanted to let them know that their players, their idols, were in the same situation, and to see how they were dealing with it. So with the players, we did a sort of a diary. So some players were giving, they were cooking, so giving out recipes. They were training in their homes. We had some of the trainers teach communities on how to train at home to stay in shape. We had players do challenges that also youngsters could replicate to see how far they could get. We did a lot of interesting content so that the fans could feel really secure. It was important to give them a constant presence, and also to show the players with their families. So a lot of those videos sometimes were interrupted by their kids or their wife, and it was important that it was casual contents as well, so that people could see everybody was in the same situation. At the same time, we launched now by the end of the pandemic. Once the lockdown was over, we launched Bari is Back, which involves the whole community. We produced 1,200 physical banners that could be reserved, and then into our official store, you can go and take your own banner, so you can put it on your balcony or outside of your home, anywhere, outside of your business. And just to show, it's a sign to show that the city is back, that the team is back, and that hopefully it's a restart of a new era. So we've been working closely into giving out as much digital content as we could to keep people informed and give them a sane presence.
Chad, here in Orlando, we did a lot of things, but actually we split the strategy in two. So one is educational. So we start to do using our platforms to educate our fans in the community, so how they can fight the virus, where they can find a place to be tested. We finance with a lot of masks and to be distributed in the community. And then the other side, it's really trying to find ways to raise dollars to the ones that need it the most. I'll give you just one example that I think was very, very interesting. We call here the March to the Match. So it's basically the fans stays in downtown and they gather in there, drinking their beers, and then they walk into the stadium. So what we tried to do is, what we did actually, it was a virtual March to the Match. So they can virtually stop in the restaurant that they used to go and make a donation and buy a virtual beer in order to help those places that were closed and were out of business at that point, to help them to raise money. So there were a lot of ideas, but basically it was really educational. We will continue to do the same, and as well trying to raise dollars to the ones to need it the most.
In our case, our club, our social model is different because we don't have an owner. I mean, Real Madrid has 93,000 members, and then from the very first day, we are in contact with them through our president, through our players from both our basketball and football teams, our head coaches, ambassadors of the club, and that players who are playing a very important role as ambassadors of Real Madrid. And at the same time, we use Real Madrid television, Real Madrid app, our website, our social media. In our social media, for example, we have 350 million followers. So, and they were eager to know about our players, about the team, about the club. And then to respond to that demand, we created a specific digital content just for them, and then that's been something very, very important, and help us to create a strong engagement with our fans.
Over here, Chad, we were a little bit different. We used the stadium here as a COVID-19 testing center. So during the early part of the crisis, we were testing about 1,500 people per day for the virus, and we tried where we could to use our sponsors, our partners, to put together food parcels for some of the more vulnerable people in the community. Our ticketing team made about 4,000 calls to elderly fans, vulnerable fans, fans that were isolated during the lockdown, living on their own. And we also tried to engage regularly through fans forums online. We use Zoom a lot to speak to our fans in different groups from different parts of the world, using players and coaches where we could as well to make it more interesting for the fans rather than listening to me talking about the club. We wanted them to engage with the people that they love so much seeing on the pitch. So I think it's been sort of split into sort of things that we could do to help practically and things that we could do to help emotionally. And both of those things combined, as I said earlier, put the football club at the center of the community, which I think is so important in every country.
It's really great. Thanks to all of you for your leadership through this pandemic and for your continued leadership as we move forward. We only have a couple of minutes left, and I feel a good closing is, what recommendations do you have for football or even just the wider sports community CEOs over the upcoming 12 months? It's effective.
Well, I would say definitely to be present in first person in anything you do. It's important to really give a lot of credibility to the brand, to your team, to be there and inspire everybody. That's very, very important. To be creative as much as you can in any transaction you have. I think adaptability is key in this moment. So that's super important. And I think what I was saying earlier, to really study behavioral economy, to understand every single move of the masses, of how the public is going to work. So I think this is very important.
Look, what I would say is to really stay calm at this point. I mean, assess the damage, because we are not there yet. We didn't finish it yet, and communicate and be transparent. This is what I think, and thank you for being part of this. It was a pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you.
Emilio and Paul, any closing words for other CEOs out there, or even other sporting directors out there?
It's not a matter of advice. It's just, as I said before, I think this is an unprecedented situation, and we have to do is to be able to accommodate ourselves to the situation and be flexible to make the right decisions.
Yeah, I think I would echo that, Chad. I think be prepared to adapt, be prepared to be flexible, be prepared to be communicative. I think the one thing that all of us, it sounds like we've done during this process, is to communicate as much as we can. I think that's really valuable.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. And David, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chad. Yeah, that was a really interesting journey and a really lovely sort of sentiment to finish with, just getting those bits of advice from our four speakers. We heard from Paul right at the start about, well, the one thing that I really felt strongly is not taking football for granted anymore, at football and all sports, because, you know, we live a very rich diet of it week in, week out, day in, day out. And you know, suddenly it's gone, and how Brighton and Hove Albion responded to that with a very measured way of dealing with the coronavirus impact, but also Emilio telling us about the digital impact and how it will accelerate the digital processes in society. That means that there is an opportunity here as well. We heard from Luigi about how they're going to be continuing to structure the team with more resources still moving forward with other plans, whereas from Paul it was more about protecting the team primarily. So yes, to work on the training ground, but maybe the stadium upgrade might just be put on hold for a little bit, and also just a little bit of that kind of cautious note of how clubs have been living beyond their means, and we saw the example of Wigan Athletic FC, of course, going into administration this week as a really stark reminder of that. And then what, you know, I think we must remember that it is a global game, but football is all about community. It was born in communities, local communities, and yes, it's a global game, but that how, you know, you have to try and serve those communities as best you can, whether it be with content, whether it be with direct action, whether it be with Zoom calls, etc., etc. So yes, I mean, I thought it was a fascinating discussion and plenty that we managed to zoom around in that time. So thank you to all of you, and thank you, Chad, for marshalling the discussion so brilliantly as ever. And good luck to you also in the resumption and completion of your campaigns, Paul. I'm sure you're not too far away from Premier League survival and another season in England's top division. We wish you best with that. Of course, Emilio, 4 points clear with 4 games to go. You must be sensing the champagne will be put on ice somewhere and then eventually could be uncorked soon. Alex, of course, with your competition MLS back tournament, with that big derby against Inter Miami to kick it off, and indeed Luigi with the Serie C playoffs as well. We really, really appreciate your input. So thank you ever so much, and good luck with the endeavours that will follow in the days and weeks to come. And thanks also to all of you for getting involved who've been watching this session online. And don't forget that even though that's the sort of closing of this part of WFS Live Day 1, well, we have got the Brazil rooms later on as well, and they'll be introduced by my colleague Eduardo Baraldi, who is the CEO of Octagon Brazil. Today's topics including from 7 p.m. Central European summertime, a debate about the current state of Brazilian football after the COVID pandemic, and also from 8 p.m. Central European summertime, debate about sports medicine. Just so you know, if you did miss any of the panels today, don't worry, because you can actually watch it through WFS Live platform. Don't forget to spread the word about this event as well. Do tag us in. We're WF Summit on Twitter and World Football Summit on Instagram. So at WF Summit on Twitter and at World Football Summit on Instagram. Tomorrow, by the way, we start at 13:05 Central European summertime. I wish I could tell you what time that is wherever you are, but there are just simply too many of you. So make sure that you work out you're in the right time zone and you follow us with that. It will be the Asian perspective. Will football start with a clean slate in the growing powerhouse of football? So that will be what we kick off with on day 2 of WFS Live, powered by Ronaldo. But I'll leave you now with a presentation containing some potentially interesting information for you on the exhibitors that are participating in WFS Live, powered by Ronaldo. See you tomorrow.
shouldn't call you in these days. Yeah, the city.
The next 6 weeks will surely be the greatest celebration of cricket ever.
Yeah, the chase.
And there it is.
I shouldn't call you in these days. 'Cause I know I'm not the only one who is trying to be your only one. Don't want you in my mind, but I'm beside. If you let me be your only one, there will never be a
Such a clever operator, and that was a strike from Carlos
Stand
Brighton.
by. There's a million other people here tonight. There's a million other people here tonight. You know I could have a good one if I lie. Yeah, you ain't gonna learn to love me, there's no lie. I can't stay on standby. Stand by. Stand by. There's a million other people here tonight. Stand by. There's a million other people here tonight. I can't stay on standby. You should call me.
That's a superb delivery. Beaten through the defence. And how often does he strike for India?
There's something good though in feeling more. You should call me before I go. 'Cause I know I'm not the only one who is trying to be your only one. Don't want you in my mind, but I'm beside. If you let me be your only one, there will never be a lonely one. I can't go on hoping that you might stand by. There's a million other people here tonight. You know I could have a good one if I lie. Yeah, you ain't gonna learn to love me, there's no lie.
Gonna go over his head. Oh, no way! You cannot do that, Ben Stokes. Out! Oh, wow, what a catch!
There's a million other people here tonight. I can't stay on. I go for broke. I just need to know. I just need to know. Are we go? I just need to know. I just need to know.
And New Zealand go the victory. 48 games, one ball, his ball. They're going to push. Out! I'm sure he's out. We're going to a super over. Gattu's going to push for two. They've got to go. It's got to throw. It's got to go to the keeper's in. He's got it. And you're going to win the World Cup by the barest of margins.
Stand by.
Pues he estado esta semana de vacaciones. ¿Y tú en qué andas ahora?
Estoy estudiando un máster en la liga.
¿En la liga?
Sí, en la liga.
¿Pero en la liga de fútbol?
La liga no es solo fútbol, es pasión por el deporte y todo lo que lo hace posible.
Sé que mi futuro profesional empieza aquí, aprendiendo de los mejores y rodeada de personas con los mismos intereses que yo.
Estudiar aquí es una fuente de estímulos constante. Los compañeros, los profesores, los viajes, vivir en una ciudad como Madrid.
En la Liga Business School trabajamos para captar y formar talento y así proveer a la industria del deporte de un valor muy importante en forma de capital humano, contribuyendo así a su profesionalización.
Es una oportunidad de formar parte de lo que más me apasiona y hacer de ello mi profesión.
Desde la Liga Business School ponemos todo el corazón en transmitir a nuestros alumnos nuestra experiencia y visión única del deporte.
Como valor diferencial destacaría que es un proyecto in-house que nace de nuestro compromiso con la evolución de la industria del deporte. Además, contamos con un campus único, nuestra sede.
Por eso, conoces a expertos del sector. Tienes prácticas garantizadas y acceso a una bolsa de trabajo.
No es solo un máster, es una experiencia.
¿Y la liga? ¿Sigues creyendo que es solo fútbol?
Rugby World Cup is the third largest sports event in the world. It's really the first time that sports hospitality has been offered at a tournament of this size here in Japan, and we've worked very hard over the past 3 years to make sure that every single customer has an unforgettable experience.
We've been involved with the Rugby World Cup really since 2003. It was kind of before the start of STH. We managed the hospitality program in 2003 in Australia, and then after that we joined forces with our other shareholder to create then what was called Rugby Travel and Hospitality, with the unique proposals that had never been done before of managing both the hospitality and the travel program for Rugby World Cup. We've been involved in the past 4 Rugby World Cups. We've got a great heritage in Rugby World Cup and a great bank of knowledge of how that tournament really works.
Essentially, it started when STH Group in the UK won the rights to hospitality both at the Rugby World Cup in 2015 and 2019. And we felt that we needed to have a local partner here in Japan to set up the business and to run the hospitality program. Someone that we could trust and work with, that was well known in Japan, that had a great brand presence. So we worked with a local company called JTB, Japan's largest travel agency, and we've been working with them very closely since 2017.
Working with JTB has allowed us to adapt and really understand the Japanese market. We have some staff from the UK who've got the retained expertise of Rugby World Cup, but a lot of sales staff from Japan because they're good with the relationships in Japan. One of the challenges in Japan is that we would normally work in countries where these stadiums have quite extensive hospitality facilities built in. Because sport hospitality doesn't really exist here as an industry, we're working in stadiums where there's really no hospitality facilities. So we almost had to create everything from scratch, either within existing facilities that don't normally host hospitality or in building temporary structures. And then the other challenge, of course, is finding the suppliers to service that in that new industry.
There are 12 venues, but our flagship structure is going to be at the Yokohama National Stadium. So we've developed a temporary structure that sits just outside of the stadium. It will hold 1,300 people. Now we have a mixture of an open restaurant which will hold roughly 700 guests, and we have a number of different private suites which have been taken by various corporations here in Japan, multinational and Japanese corporations. Those suites range from 20 people up to our largest one, which will hold 180 people. So depending on what the customer is looking for and what their needs are, we've been able to develop a program that suits each of them.
For Rugby World Cup 2019, we've created a variety of packages, different options and different price points and experiences. Our main stadium at Yokohama includes several packages ranging from private suites to shared restaurants to more informal settings in Yokohama Arena. Regionally, outside of Yokohama, in the other 11 venues, we have simplified the product to have only 2 packages, and that's proved really successful for us and given us a good range of options for our customers. We've been really pleased with our sales, which have exceeded 60,000 packages and beyond 10 billion yen in revenue. So a fantastic uptake from both the domestic market and the international market.
STH was appointed to manage the official travel programme by Rugby World Cup. To manage the travel programme, we appoint travel agents from around the world, and it's their job to package up our match tickets with either accommodation and or travel and offer those as a travel package. For this programme, we've appointed 21 travel agents who actually cover 15 different countries. In addition to that, we've had a further 35 sub-agents appointed over the course of the tournament. So there's lots of different travel agents around the world giving lots of choice for our customers.
The support we've received from STH through being a recognised OTA has been across a number of levels. Firstly, the general support as being part of a family of travel agents from around the world. So knowing that there are a number of countries around the world that are doing similar things to us. From a brand guidelines perspective, making sure we're saying the right things, doing the right things so that we look and feel effective and official. I think that credibility from a consumer perspective is really important. Knowing that supporters are coming in with a trusted brand and knowing that their tickets are safe, their services are safe and that they're secure in their package. And I think fundamentally, ultimately, it's being part of the official programme. You know, that it's a hugely important part of what we do is being official. And being part of the STH family of official travel agents has been massive for us.
The rights holders these days see the major travel and hospitality programs as a major enhancement of their event. There's the obvious benefit of monetizing that opportunity, but it isn't just that as well. It's about enhancing the name of the tournament itself, bringing that extra fan experience. If people really enjoy that experience, that makes them lifelong advocates of the event itself. And that's the power of sport hospitality. It's a memory that stays with you for the rest of your life.